Greetings from Snake Mountain Boatworks on Tuesday, February 25, 2020. Here's an update on the unfortunate foredeck of the 1956 19-foot Chris Craft Capri. We've now released the 4 offending planks, the 4 that were ravaged by the previous, quote, restorer, unquote. And I am even more perplexed. These guys went to all the trouble to create these super long, incredibly shallow scarf joints. The joints on the mahogany planks, the colored planks, not the bleached blonde planks, is similarly an overlap. Each of these 2 pieces is dadoed and then fit together, and then I would presume was sanded. Just so totally unnecessary. Look at this plank. This is an original 1956 deck plank. The mahogany is just beautiful, as if I swing across, it is on the rest of the foredeck, and indeed the rest of the covering boards, the aft deck, and the hull sides of this Capri. These guys, it's just amazing. Rather than simply releasing these screws and releasing this entire plank, chose to just release a few screws and whack it off. Why not? Why go to all that trouble? Well, in truth, I think I'd have to look at the time clock, but I think the total time invested in stripping this down, removing the bungs, backing out the fasteners, and oh, by the way, these guys must have reached into the discard bin for their fasteners. There's a little of everything in there. There's some brass, there's some bronze, there's every kind of length you could imagine. There's 6s and 8s. I even found one 10. I just don't understand it. It just boggles the mind. So all these guys had to do was, rather than being lazy and just removing screws here, they just had to release the plank. How hard is that? Instead of creating this incredibly long, very difficult scarf joint, actually 2 of them, imagine the time that took to make that all fit. All they had to do was release the screws, guys. It's not that hard. It's the right way to preserve a boat. As a result, we have this ahead of us. I'm not sure what they did. It kind of looks like some material was added here. This cross piece is new. And guys, you know, your bucket of screws might have included something long enough to secure this member, because it is stiffening the deck. And now the deck, of course, can just fly free. I've always objected to the fact that Chris Craft never secured the tails on its decks of these intermediate battens. The aft end of each of them is not secured either. Our practice typically is to add a cleat that will cross beneath these 3 members on this end, and in the aft end we'll have to use 2 short ones. I would sooner see this guy secured and not floating. I know we're only bridging about, what, 10 inches maybe, and in fact there's still quite a lot of strength here, but it would be just so much stronger. You get a guy my size stepping on this deck, particularly that part of the deck, and you run the risk of an unfortunate experience of a size 14 making its own rather hideous shall we say, footprint in the deck. We will obviously secure this in place. We have dealt with the channel, and I'm sure I'll get some pushback for this, but we had a choice. Either disturb the entire dash area beneath the windshield by removing these two center planks, or simply taking our fine multi-master and severing the planks right here. When we put the new ones in, they will be fair to this surface. The windshield sits down in this groove. So rather than tamper with that, we have remained level as produced, and the windshield will sit right in there very nicely. Elsewhere in the boat, we are really trying. The owner would really prefer that we not take the bottom off. Unfortunately, not only is the bilge hideously oil-soaked, we've now discovered that there's a reason why you see that strip of brass bridging that frame back there. What's beneath it is badly rotted. The bilge stringers have a little bit of surface rot in a couple places. We'll repair that with, and it'll be a cosmetic repair with Dutchman. But we have, sorry if I'm making you dizzy, we have issues, serious rot with this frame, that frame, that frame. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and granted, these are all forward of the engine, and maybe we could get by, but this is a big, heavy boat. When it's slamming through the water, there is a lot of shock going on at that bottom. We need to keep the keel in place. We need to keep the planks in place. If it were my boat, I'd take this bottom off completely and replace it with a 5200 bottom. I know the owner would rather not. That remains to be seen. If you remember from a previous video, the engine in this boat was marinized. We now know, having shipped the engine to Robert Henkel, it's a bar and bar marinization, which are fine. The one problem is that in that process, somebody chose to put that big honking lower pulley, which is actually the raw water pump, on the front end of the engine. And if you remember, it protruded way past the aft side of the aft seat. So it came way into here. Henkel has looked at that this morning, and he said, oh, that's not a problem. We'll just install a typical marine raw water pump, and all of that will go away. You can put that seat back right back where it was originally, and the owner will have a properly angled seat in the rear end. So that's where we are now. I'm going to continue stripping the decks, the covering boards, the gunnels, etc. And then perhaps towards the end of this week, we will flip her over and begin working on the bottom. The first step will be stripping her. Once she's upside down, we will also be stripping the top sides forward of, sort of right here, sort of forward of the engine bay. It's much easier to work with the boat upside down and stripping these hull sides. And as you can see, we have some real challenges here. These boards are pretty severely cupped all the way through. And we still don't know what we're facing with the bullnose and all the goop that this same outfit pumped into this seam and this joint. But that said, we'll continue working, continue reporting to you as we endeavor to the best of our abilities to preserve this beautiful 19-foot, 1956 Chris Craft Capri. Thank you so much. Bye-bye for now from Snake Mountain Boatworks.